To start with, I just mentioned that there are a lot of high-quality entrants to this year. But I also need to say that this year's case competition, the case material itself is hard. It's a difficult case. Why did I say that it's difficult? Because the industry itself is actually difficult. It's a TMT industry. It's talking about a game developer. And it's not something that as close to our daily life as a restaurant or a gym membership. So you may not be very familiar with the topic. So I realized that one of the things that, well, I can see a lot of good teamwork and collaborations amongst all the participants within the team. I found that somehow when we're talking about, trying to understand the industry, I tell you, being a business advisor for over 20 years, one of the things that which is very important is to understand the industry of your client. So it would be very helpful if we would be able to put in a lot more market research is to trying to understand what the industry is really about. And I need to tell you that video games are quite different from mobile games. And mobile games there are a lot of variants within mobile games. And within video games, what's the difference between VR and AR, right? One of the people was talking about that. And some of the teams even mentioned about metaverse. What are the differences between all these terms? I can realize that some of the participants may not quite understand what that means. So if you do not have that basic knowledge, it's actually very difficult for you to give a thorough and a comprehensive enough SWOT analysis for you to get into the next stage. The next stage is to provide recommendations to your clients. So what I'm trying to say here is that you really need to understand if you are actually going to give business advice, it's important to understand this macro environment first. And secondly, of course, understand the company itself in order to give business advice. So that would be one of my recommendation is to understand your client's industry. I think that is important. And as a result of that, I can see that some people were talking about outsourcing the IT service providers. Students, I want to say that it's actually impossible to outsource your IT service provider in a game entertainment industry. Impossible, because that is your bread and butter. This is what your technical expertise is. If you lose that, you lose the data, you lose your competitive advantage, you lose everything. It's impossible to outsource it, even though that you're working people really hard in that. But I can tell you, I can see a lot of game developers really like working that hard. Some of the game developers, they have like showers, 24-hour canteen. People can sleep in the office premise because they know that they need to devote their life to work on the game development. So something that in some perspective, so that's why I said you have to understand the industry in order to make some sensible recommendations. And I guess the last but not the least that I want to talk about is about giving out financial projections. Some of the teams have given out some thorough financial projections. Fortunately or unfortunately, you were actually having a panel of like 5 CPAs. And they are all professional accountants who can, they can spend like 30 minutes, look at your numbers, and then identify what the problems are. So when you are really presenting your financial projections, make sure that they are intact and defendable. I think that's about it. Thank you.
I would like to congratulate all the students on that. And honestly, listening to the 12th presentation, I think you have all done a lot of work and have given us a lot of good ideas for us to think about. Now, if I may share a couple of comments or advice on how we prepare such kind of presentation. I think a lot of details are given in the cases, a lot of details, a lot of numbers. But I think the details aside, is always useful to step back and think from a higher level what we'd like to achieve. And I think there are 3 different aspects that we should be thinking about. And coincidentally, the first letter of the three things are CPA. Trust me, I didn't make it up before the event, but I really was thinking about it as I listened to the presentation. So C stands for context. So for this case, it is a business environment. You are representing an accounting or professional service firm. So it's always important to think about the objective, what you like to get out of the presentation. So a good team would be able to do a very good analysis of the business situation and impress the client. A better team would be able to give some recommendation so that the client is really interested to get to know you more. And an even better team would be able to link the recommendation to the service offering that your firm is offering, so that hopefully by the end of the presentation, you can get some business. So that would guide the amount of content and time that you would allocate. And I think after preparing for the slides, you can always step back to think about whether the content would suit the objectives. Now, when it comes to P, that's the practicality. I think it's always easy to think about ideas like, promoting with some very sizable corporations such as Tencent, or trying to get some government grant. But is it really practical in that situation? Is it really practical for the business to implement the suggestion? That's always something that we have to think about. And finally, on A, that's the audience. I think the president has mentioned this is an event held by the HKICPA, so you assume that most, if not all, of the adjudicators would be accountants. And I don't want to repeat the president's point on, you have to be really careful about numbers if the audience are all very sensitive to them. So with that, hopefully I give some useful advice for you to do this kind of presentation going forward. And hopefully with this exercise, I think all of you can understand that the work of an accountant is not just about numbers. It's about business analysis. It's about communications. And I do look forward to seeing many of you joining our profession and demonstrate those skills going forward. Thank you very much.
In a lot of efforts and also team spirit have been put into this business case. And I hope, you have a first experience of being a business advisor. Although this is in a mock situation, but definitely you can see that, this is more than accounting. And I saw actually you also actually have recommend many different strategy, among the situations. So my 2 cents, first of all, definitely, although student, you may be a very good gamer or very good at esports, but but definitely, being a gaming operator or gaming company is more than that, absolutely. And so either you are a payer or actually you operate total different stories. So as our President Loretta mentioned, the business model of a gaming operator is very complicated. No matter, it is even in Hong Kong or even in mainland China, it's highly regulated. And also this is really, a lot of, policy driven the market. So you need to really consider, particularly the situation there. And also I think one very important point is about how you could, understand more regarding this industry. I think one practical tips is really look into the prospectus of the gaming companies. Because actually here, you have industry section. It actually sets out all the, industry players, benchmarking, different companies or different players in the market. And also it describes some of its business model so that you can have a really better understanding of what a gaming operator is doing and what the concerns are. And especially there are also some risk factors in prospectus describing, the business situations in different markets. Like if the gaming operator in China, there will be some risk factor within China market. So you need to consider when running operations. So this is one thing that I think you could, no matter in what industry, you could look into, the prospectus of a local company that can get a very good sense of the latest situation in the market. And secondly, I mean, accountants although I mean, you can say that this is being counter, this is not. Always, I mean, you need to exercise a judgment in terms of applying accounting standards. And in this situation, I can say that although, I mean, in the business case, there are two options on the table regarding which way you want to go for the acquisitions. In a real life situation, it's more than that. There are always, I mean, more than the two options. And there are also, I mean, some option. You can just strip out something. You can only, for example, getting some of that, but not all of that. This is in real life. So definitely, I mean, you need to think out of the box. Although you're accountant, you say that, I need to comply with the rules and regulations. But there are always, as I mentioned, there's judgment that you need to apply, especially if you are a business advisor. You always, I mean, need to really think about whether there are any other scenarios you can apply to recommend based on the knowledge, based on the different standards, I mean, to this real life situation so that you can really become a full professional business advisor. So thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank all the students here today for preparing for this business case competition and then preparing the PowerPoint and then actually come and stand in front of a panel and present and answer questions. So that is a very important step, which hopefully there will not be winners for everybody, but hopefully we will learn something during this morning's process. And before I go on, I'd like to, first of all, give a big clap to yourself for all the hard work you have done today. And I will also try not to repeat what has been said before by the other adjudicators, and just like to share a couple of points that I have considered during this morning. The students, some of them have been quite aggressive and in putting forward quite a number of initiatives. So it could be 8 to 10 initiatives to the company, right? If you are putting such a list of initiatives, you probably need to prioritize which one you would recommend the company to implement first, okay? And after that, I would strongly suggest you actually be more focused and narrow that down to about 3 to 4 impactful initiatives, which the company can implement with the proper costs and benefits. What I think we find is that sometimes there are a bit of a mismatch, and also the cost is not linked to the benefits for the actions taken. So this is something which the student might like to consider going forward. Secondly, I'll just make a point on presentation. Many of the students are very good in terms of preparing the slides, having bullet points, and then speak referring to the slides, okay? But I still see some groups of students still read from the handout or a piece of paper. It's fine if you need a assistant of a piece of paper, but still try to face the audience. Eyes contacts are very, very important in any kind of presentations. And if you want to make impactful presentations to your audience, your body language, your tone must also be appropriate so that you will create an impact and memory in the people you tried to influence or to give advice to. Okay, so these are my 2 cents of advice, and I'll pass it on to the next adjudicator. Thank you.
A few short observations. One is, this is still for the presenters, this is a formal presentation. So from that perspective, to keep the professionalism going, some level of formality is required. So role playing is actually not suitable in this kind of setting. That's number one. Number two is, yes, framing the problem is very important, but at the end of the day, the client knows what the problems are. What they expect the presenters to present are recommendations or solutions to those problems. So repeating the problems or elucidating the problems are not sufficient. You need to go further. I think one of the adjudicators is saying the recommendations must be tied to the problems. So it needs to flow. The other one is think outside the box. There's, I think in the case study, it gives you a lot of materials, but repeating it, it is not sufficient. You have to think about read between the lines. What are the case study giving you data about that you need to go out and find yourself, like going out to the prospectuses of gaming company to see what the industry norms are or industry risks are and things like that. And one of the interesting thing, maybe perhaps I'll just share, is that in the case study materials, it talks about the company's revenue being based on the game credits that it sells. So you can only recognize revenue if the players utilize the game credits they buy. So if the players don't utilize the game credits, let's say, for example, they give up on the game, they change, they move on to something else, the company will not be able to recognize those revenue, and it will always stay forever in the books as deferred income, and that's not what you want. So, but nobody mentioned that. That's one of the things. And then also, nobody mentioned the business model of a gaming company, right? Gaming company, basically any company's business model is made up of revenue and cost and effort, right? All the presentations focus on the cost and effort, like labor dilemma, ethics dilemma, personal data, but nobody talks about the revenue side. The revenue side is about market demand, right? As a company, if I was the company seeking your advice, I want to know how to grow revenue, not just how do I deal with my costs. All right, cost is just one element. Revenue is a very important element that I think I don't recall any of the presenters kind of focused on. But anyway, food for thought, very commendable effort, very, very interesting. And I'm glad all of you had the chance to present. And I hope, again, like most of us said, that you'll join the profession and grow from there. All right, thank you very much.